Been a while since I made one of these on the YouTube channel, so I thought I would come back on here and talk a little bit about the recovery journey, in the sense that, oh my God, I'm starting to feel recovered already early on in the journey, and it's usually a bluff. And I'm going to break that down and I'm going to show the details of that. When I was stuck with OCD for so many years, I used to be in OCD forums all the time. And they used to be places of no hope. Repeated stories by like OCD gal 1612, head up hun, you'll get better soon. That wasn't very helpful for me when I was in the pits of despair. OCD survivor 1611, you can recover, I've recovered. 2 days later, looking at their next thread, oh my God, I think I'm never going to recover. That is sadly the case, because so many people, when they feel some little bit of hope, they then think, I don't need to work on recovery anymore. They then spend a lot of time coasting. I've even seen people that have come to us that have been so stuck and not listening, not reading, not coming to sessions, missing sessions, skipping sessions. And I see those people then go into an OCD forum and say something like, feeling the best ever, everything just clicked. And I'm thinking, yeah, I wouldn't rejoice too soon. And you see that. It's people think things are overly simplistic. They're not overly simplistic. OCD recovery, for it to be embodied for long-term, back to sort of default inner peace, because I don't feel chronic anxiety and guilt anymore, and I was a very severe case. And to be in that position took lots of regular work. I see people today often quoting my work. Loads of times I see this and they think, oh, that's so easy, I just get that now. And then I see them relapsing. Oh my God, I've had 3 days in bed, I feel terrible. And it just gives, again, a sense of no hope, because recovery takes persistence, practice and time. It's the same as when you go to a gym, you see someone who hasn't worked out much, becomes a personal trainer, and then you think, God, that guy's only been sort of reading a couple of men's fitness magazines, read a few posts, done a few workouts, and now they're preaching, and you think, hold on, the knowledge is very poor. And that's the reality of a lot of things today. Because OCD recovery, and I can't highlight this enough, if it was easy, do you think the likes of Howard Hughes, who was the 5th richest man in the world at the time, an aviation pioneer, do you think he would have spent most of his life locked up in contamination OCD, unable to get out of that? Do you think he would have been in that situation, given that he was 1, very smart, 2, very wealthy? Do you think that the resources wouldn't have made him be able to get out of that? Do you think he would have just snapped out of it with some mantras or something like that? Absolutely not. And when people have chronic severe OCD, they like to think, yeah, but I woke up fine in the past. Yeah, but it hadn't got a hold, most likely, in the genetic locking mechanism accompanied with beliefs that it is right now. Okay? If it was that easy, you would see people with contamination OCD just step forward towards the bin they've been avoiding for 5 years, touch it and go, I told myself thoughts are thoughts. I let thoughts pass through my ear and out the ear. I told myself I can do hard things, which I'm not a fan of that statement anyway, because I think it's super condescending. It's like talking to yourself like you're a baby. I can do hard things. Yeah, humans can. Humans went to war, humans raise families, humans in terrible conditions, humans build businesses in terrible conditions, people come back from the hardest hardships in life. Of course they can do hard things, it's obvious, right? Saying we can do hard things is like giving a kid a pat on the back for coming last in an egg and spoon race, right? That's the reality of life. We don't need condescending tones of, oh, you'll be okay. That tone is not how you'd speak to a kid if you want to develop them in the right way. You want a bit of comfort and helping along the way when you're going through hard times, but it has to be a compassionate, tough love journey. If you just want to hear, I'm okay, pat on the back, OCD loves that. It's resilient. It loves that. I'm not being harsh. I'm not trying to be deliberately harsh. I'm trying to be deliberately real so that you build robust recovery. Because the community of OCD is full of so much mollycoddling. And mollycoddling is the disaster. And let me highlight why. Because the people that we see with the worst OCD are often the ones who've been mollycoddled the most by their parents. Oh, I'm doing all his cleaning for him because he doesn't like it, because he doesn't like contamination. That's colluding with OCD. That's a disaster. You need to let your children take responsibility and take risk. Then they're more likely to progress along the recovery journey. If mollycoddling is also going on with the therapists and coaches in the baby voice of, oh, you'll be fine, thoughts are thoughts, thoughts are thoughts, just a meaningless thought, you're the last person to do that, that gives no strength and substance to someone along the journey. And often when people come along, they come and work with us and they have coaching with us, they improve massively, and then they go back to life and they think, do you know what, I like the idea of thoughts are thoughts. And they think, oh, it's working now. It's working now. No, the substance was built underneath so that then the light work of thoughts are thoughts then stopped those subtle, milder thoughts. Yes, and you're able to distance with them a lot more. Yes. But when a catastrophe, something happens in your life very challenging, you'll find very quickly that you're back at square one fast. I have people coming in from 5 years ago that have been coasting for 3 years when they haven't come to see us. Oh my God, Rob, I'm so stuck. I see people that have come into me, then sort of preaching in OCD forums and on YouTube. Oh, I'm completely recovered and I've done this and I've done that, thinking that they've grasped absolutely everything, right? Then post, I'm in bed for a week, I feel terrible. It gives a hopeless feeling in the community. Recovery is not something that you can just say, I'm recovered, when it's not recovery at all, right? The problem is this. In sobriety, if you are sober for 5 years and you haven't touched a drop of alcohol or any drugs, you're sober, okay? If you are drinking once a week, you're not sober. You wouldn't say, my sobriety means to me that I don't drink alcohol once a week, but then sometimes on holiday I drink and that's sobriety to me. That's not sobriety, okay? And OCD recovery is the same. The reason, and I'll give this really clear and clear-cut answer to this, the reason why you will see people say OCD recovery means to me because of this inclusive idea that's junk, where people want to be included in I'm recovered when they're not. And so then people think, oh yeah, well, they're doing really well. Yeah, we can say they're recovered. No, because then it gives hopelessness to the others. So if you are not recovered, you are in bed for 3 days, you are struggling, and then you feel better for a lot of other days. You're not recovered yet. You are on the journey to recovery, but you're not recovered yet. That doesn't mean recovery means to me I stay in bed 3 days a week. No. And that's got to be clear, because otherwise, when I was stuck in the OCD community, I didn't think there was hope. Everyone I met was like that OCD gal 31612. Head up, hun, take some meds, this kind of thing. No. You can recover from OCD back to how you were before chronic OCD began for you. But it takes persistence, practice, and time. And it is the absence of chronic guilt and anxiety long-term. It doesn't mean you can't ever have a setback. But what it means is your baseline state is calm long-term. And that is so different to how people often think it is. I've seen advocates for charities, for big organizations, for anxiety, for OCD saying, I'm recovered. And then I see them posting, I've had 5 panic attacks today, but that's what recovery involves. No, that's not what recovery involves at all. You're not recovered, you're still very scared of things, and you've made lots of progress along the journey, but you are not recovered. It's like I often see people saying like, yeah, well, I'm recovered because I can now go to the gym, I can now see my friends, I can now travel, I can now do this. Yes, but do you experience anxiety and guilt most of the time? Yes, I do, but that's not recovery. And I shouldn't even have to paint that picture if it was more obvious. But because of that oh, everyone needs to be included, they need to be proud of their journey. Yes, you can be proud of your journey. You are on the journey to recovery. That's great. That's a lot better than not being on the journey to recovery, right? So you have got to think about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, and why you're trying to achieve it. Everything's about consistency. Everything's about consistency. If you go in OCD forums, the people that say, oh, I'm good today and bad tomorrow, there's usually zero consistency. Their threads are like 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm having a really bad time. I'm having a great time. Now I'm on holiday. Now I feel terrible. I'm at work. That's not recovery. That's somebody who's doing better at times, but all over the place. Yeah. If they came to you as somebody that was trying to help you recover from OCD, and then you heard that they were 4 days in bed, and then this time feeling terrible, that time feeling, it's not recovery. Yeah. When you look at somebody like Nick, we just did that documentary on him hiking the Manitou Incline. When he had sensory motor OCD, he could barely breathe. He could barely function. He was laying on his back all the time. He was in the hospital. He had zero energy and was having anger outbursts and panic attacks and freaking out all the time. Today, I can't think of many people in the world who work with as many people doing one-to-one sessions OCD as him. He works with practically every country, and he helps so many people with OCD and works all round the clock doing that. If he was stuck, do you think he would be able to do that? Do you think he'd be able to hike mountains in weighted vests 2-3 times a week? He's going to Everest to hike base camp, which he's very excited about and dragged me into paying for. And all those things, to do that with sensory motor breathing OCD, it's more or less you can't. Because if you've got manual breathing, you're out of breath every time. Yes, you can get involved, but you'd find that it was so laborious that it gets very difficult. Now, with the team that I have, I'm working with them very closely. Any problems we talk about, anything that they think could be a setback, we talk about, right? And I can see the robust recovery. I can see that people are in a good position and a stable position. And that's the same with myself. I haven't had setbacks for many years. I had a setback when I went to the doctor and they thought I had a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I got quite freaked out, and it took me quite a few days, let's say about 4 or 5 days, but of being pretty freaked out to calm back down and get back to baseline peace. In that situation, I had to have a lot of tests. I used to have health OCD in the past. I had to have a lot of tests the doctor was doing because they were very concerned that I had one tonsil that had been enlarged for a year, very large. So at that period, quite a few years ago now, about 6 years ago or so, I was pretty concerned. That's what I would call a setback. And to give myself credit in that situation, I don't think that was a bad setback to have. And like I said, I got into a position where I felt calm again. I accepted my situation, the uncertainty, possible death, all those things. And I documented it on this YouTube channel at the time. Now, the problem is today is you've got this idea that recovery is something that you can ups and downs and not baseline. No, that's not recovery. Day to day, there is no chronic guilt and anxiety. There is no, oh my God, I can't handle this. There is no, oh, I think I need to stop working with OCD for 3 months, like you see lots of accounts disappear and then spring back up when the person suddenly got. That is not recovery. Now, there's no harm in that as well. Take the judgment away from that. There is no harm in that for people because they're struggling and going through a hard time. That's not the issue. The issue is when that is made out to be recovery. That's then the problem. Because that isn't. And you can never tell for some people. Some people can be really good for years and then have loads of ups and downs and it's choppy, but there's usually been a big period of coasting. If they work on that, if they change that, they can get back usually to baseline recovery. All the worst setbacks I see, all the journeys where I've seen like OCD advocates say, I spent a week in bed or whatever, it's always a belief or not consistency. They weren't reading, they were too confident. That's why for years I've told people, and I said this point in forums for years, people used to say to me, They used to say, Rob, why don't you, they always used to say, why don't you like to say that OCD is not genetic? Because it most likely is. And the reason is when some people recover, they like to think, oh, I'm not experiencing any OCD now. I feel absolutely fine. I'm never going to get stuck again. This is why I highlight it's like sobriety. In front of me is a hob, kitchen hob. If I check that 6 times, turning that hob off, I'm going to want to check 7, 8, 9. It's in there genetically. But that doesn't control me. I can accept maybe this house burns down. Maybe this house sets on fire and everyone in the house, it burns to the ground with everyone. Maybe it's possible, yeah? And that uncertainty, I'm accepting, okay? However, there are people that like to think that, all compulsions has gone forever. That means I don't have it. And even over the years, prominent life coaches and so on have said to me, no, Rob, for me, it's all gone. And addiction, I see it with. I've had people that were famous addiction counselors, coaches, say to me, Rob, for me, I could drink again responsibly. Are you joking? You're an addiction counselor and you believe that you could drink again. Do you know how many alcoholics I've met in my life and drug addicts that have come into me for help with OCD when they've been sober, when they've got off very hard drugs? And do you know how many people have said to me over the years, I think I could go back? And I've said, really? Do you think that's worth it? Do you think that risk? I've seen close friends of mine come to the brink of losing their life 20 years after sobriety thinking that, okay? In life, it's a series of habits, and those habits have got to be in your favor. Right now, I'm in reasonably good shape, okay? I'm working out 4 or 5 times a week. Posture's pretty good. I'm feeling fit and strong. I'm working out, I'm cardiovascularly reasonably fit, strength-wise, pretty fit, okay? But right now, my neck is tweaked on one side. Why is that? Well, it's because I slept wrong in the bed. I've got sleep apnea. I got diagnosed in October, and I have to wear this CPAP thing. And for some reason, with the weight of, it's not even that heavy, and then just lying in bed, because I'm reasonably broad-shouldered, tweak my neck slightly. Now, if I go to the gym today and I say to myself, I have no injuries at all, I'm going to do a deadlift, there's nothing wrong with me, that's all in my head, what's going to happen when I do a deadlift? I'm going to have an injury. So therefore, it's very key that I be aware that I've got a tweaked neck, I can work out my legs today. I work around it. The OCD recovery journey is a humbling experience. I treat it like sobriety. I don't say OCD can never get me again. It hasn't got me in many years. If it does get me again, I will hold my hand up and I will say, hey, guys, I'm struggling with an old thought. This is how I'm working through my beliefs and I'm going through that. No shame in that, nothing. It's not trying to be a soldier that you can never be caught again, okay? That doesn't happen because I'm not scared like I used to be. I have that internal willingness and a deep level of acceptance. Philosophy is a large part of my life. Acceptance is a large part of my life, and it's not like that, right? So when I often see people that often try and imitate me, the channel, whatever, and they say these things and that, and I look under the surface, you can never see the substance. It's like the society that we live in today with celebrity culture. All these Instagrams, yo bro, look at my Lambo, look at my Ferrari, no substance. You can just see the person, you can instantly see in the personality is their substance, is their depth. You know, it's like we live in this world where there's so much imitation and so much surface level plastic fake. I mean, I walk down the street some days today and I think, God, everyone's starting to look the same because everyone wants the exact same clothes, same cosmetic surgery, same this. And I think, God, everyone's just looking like a clone, right? Depth comes from a very hard journey and reflection to build that internal ladder to get back out. That isn't something that's like when I see some social media channels and they're talking about mindfulness and talking about thoughts of the thoughts. I could teach someone what they say in 20 seconds to say that. And then a couple of comments from a celebrity, wow, that worked for me so much. When I did the Fitbod Challenge 2006, plus drank this special matcha, all my anxiety problems after my divorce went away. It's garbage, right? Because that's what a lot of society lacks substance. Substance is rare. Conversation, good conversation and depth is rare. If If you listen to most conversations in a bar and cafe happening around you, usually lacking in a lot of substance, usually relayed stories, repeated stories in the same form, just to tell another brain of some new news that has just come about. There is no deep reflection and analysis, because that takes thinking, that takes judgment, that takes being ostracized. And those elements people try and do everything to avoid. So it's very important when you go through your own life to think for yourself, what's working? Does that make sense? How's that going to improve my life? And then putting those pieces together. Everything I do is based on rational thinking, learning to think of what's the best way to go about a problem, learning to enjoy life, learning to learn and educate myself more on things, learning to see each year where I thought differently and I can improve something. Each year you don't reflect and think, oh, I could have done this differently, or I could improve that. You're not expanding, you're not growing, right? In your mind. And so I'm doing that constantly all the time. And when you do that, you're going to improve life in the best way. If your knowledge is just from TikToks, your knowledge is going to be very lacking. So many people that speak to me in conversation, I think, yeah, I've heard that in a TikTok, heard that. Yeah, what's the new insight? What's the new insight, right? And that's what's so important. You have to take ideas, you have to practice them, you have to make behavioral change, and then you can embody that change. You can't fake it for your brain. It's like when people say 4 sessions into me. Happens all the time. 4 sessions in. Oh, I've got it all, Rob, what you said now. I've got it. I'm recovered. And then I'm like, no, you're definitely not. You haven't been working for 5 years. You're struggling to get off the couch. 4 sessions in, you won't be recovered, but you've started to see some great ideas. No, Rob, don't put me down. I'm not putting you down. I'm saying that you're going to need to keep consistent with this. Otherwise, you can easily stay in the same position. And the problem is, it's like online traders. You know, people always say like, yo, bro, I'm a trader. Just as a rule of thumb, I think it's like 99.9% or something of traders don't make enough money to pay the bills, or 99%, or it's even more than that. And yet people will be convinced when they have made a couple of trades and done well. Oh, I've got an eye for trades. I'm very, very good on the market on picking the right altcoin. How many people do you meet that have retired from an altcoin? Yes, but bro, I met this one person. Yeah, but of the majority, 99.9%, spent the money, tried another thing, leveraged, all kinds of problems. So in life, one of the hard things for humans is to balance emotions and stay consistent. And that is exactly the same with the recovery journey. If someone comes into me and they say, right, I'm going to read the books, I'm going to do the sessions, I'm going to learn, reflect, put in practice, break down my beliefs, do that, things that I find hard, speak up and get help on with you, all those elements, and consistently, and 6 months pass, and they say, I'm feeling miles better now, like unbelievably better, like I'm not really having too much anxiety and guilt. Okay, you're really on the way to recovery and you've made significant progress, but you haven't been a long period with no setbacks. And you are at a place right now where you could still have them, okay? And that would be a realistic analysis of the situation. The problem you also have today is people who have mild OCD thinking they're recovered from chronic OCD. Totally different things, totally different. It's like years ago, I got a license for a jet ski, about 21 years ago. And I was in Spain and I thought, oh, I'd like to buy a jet ski and I'll get a license for it. And I got a license for it and it was really choppy weather. And I thought, fuck, you know, I probably shouldn't have taken out this jet ski today. And I didn't for a second think I could sail a huge yacht, because I knew that the jet ski was hard enough on the water, right? If you think that you have thoughts that are disabling a bit, some chronic anxiety now and again, but overall you go long periods where you're fine. It's very different to chronic severe OCD where it feels like you're in swimming and drowning in cortisol soup 24/7. And the problem with that is that people tend to then, who recover from that, say, yeah, I had OCD, I've recovered, so yeah, I can help you, I understand it. It's a totally different thing. It's Totally different thing. Chronic severe OCD doesn't give you lifelines. Chronic severe OCD is looking to grapple you from every angle and is very hard. Recovering from, no, when it's not rocket science, it's very hard when you're in it without the tools. Coming from a place of real event, false memory, harm OCD for years, I can assure you, having gone to countless people, spent years, and I'm a reasonably smart person thinking and trying to work my way out of it, it locks you in from all angles, okay? Just because it's unlatched for the moment, right? If it got you that stuck before, it doesn't mean it can't do it again. So, to summarize today's video, OCD recovery is not simplistic. People online will often say, oh my God, I'm recovered very quickly, and then look at the substance. How much substance is there? How many videos has this person made? You look at those skills. It's like when I hire somebody, I'm looking for amazing life structure. I'm looking for no anger outbursts. I'm looking for habits that are consistent through and through. I'm looking for an emotional personality that can handle really difficult days. I'm looking for somebody who is stable and not argumentative, especially in this area, all these bros and argumentative stuff like that. Nonsense, waste of time. They can barely hold a job for a week. And that's the majority of so many people. So many people can't balance emotions, can't sustain jobs for a while, can't let pride not get to them. To find good substance, good quality, balanced emotional people is difficult when you're trying to employ people. And it's very difficult when in friends, family, all these things. Very difficult in today's day and age because people have this idea of I can shout and scream and listen and da da da. And it's like, yeah, why don't you look at the old quote, which is something that there was a famous quote that said, like, most of man's problems could be solved if he could sit in a room quietly. I spend a lot of my life thinking about that, about any problems or anything in life, just sitting and seeing, can you balance the emotions in that situation? When you've got a frustrating thing, not in terms of chronic guilt and anxiety, just sit there. Yeah, you can, usually. But all of this noise and emotion, because we've created a society that thinks it's great to be emotional and loud and angry and all this, it's fucking baby stuff most of the time. You know, there's very few reasons I can ever think of where I need to yell or shout, unless you're somewhere where that's the only thing they're going to notice in terms of that situation. But otherwise, never. It's always a waste of time. It's always self-sabotaging. The way to see somebody successful is to see somebody who can balance their emotions without anger outbursts. Yeah, Rob, I disagree with that. I love people that are big personalities shouting and screaming everywhere. Yeah, that's all right, as long as they're consistent in the other areas that carry them along. But usually if they're not consistent in those areas, everything goes down the drain. So I want you to think about the OCD recovery journey as a humbling experience. I want you to really go for recovery. I want you to be realistic about what it's going to involve. You can recover. You are not broken. It's not as easy as you think. It's going to take persistence and consistency. If you do that, you will recover. And we can help you do that. And that's our whole life's work. And we're there. And you just have to WhatsApp us or email us at info@ocdrecovery.com and we will help you with that. But don't think for a second that emailing us is going to be us doing all the work. You've got to do the work. We will guide you. We will do the work with you. We're 100% behind you in that corner of the ring. And there's nothing you could ask us that we haven't seen before in OCD. But the work has to be done by you. If you come to each session and the ball keeps getting put back in your court because you haven't read the books, when is the ball going to be put back into our court? Well, sometimes never. Sometimes 5 years someone comes into me and they skim read the first book. And every session I say, please make sure you do it, and they don't. You have to do that. So if you're committed and you want to put in the work and you want to do those things, you can recover. But like I said, commitment in this world is rare. Persistence is rare because it's tough, it's difficult. There's TikToks to swipe and fun things to do. But when you look back at your life, swiping TikToks and all the fun moments and all of that stuff, is it going to build a substantial life? And recovery builds the base for a substantial life.